The Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has unanimously concluded that the appeals should be allowed and the appellant's convictions should be quashed on the ground of juror misconduct, and that the case should be remitted to the Court of Appeal of Jamaica to decide whether to order a retrial of the appellants for the murder of Clive Williams.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. The UK Privy Council has quashed the conviction of Vybz Kartel and his co-accused. It's the breaking news. Greetings, and salutations to all nations. Ladies and gentlemen, this Rastafari Soldier Deep TV. Welcome to the Rastaman channel, Dancehall Nation. Subscribe, like, and share to the Rastaman channel. Build up the Rastaman panel. Vybz Kartel and the dancehall fraternity are ecstatic as the UK Privy Council has quashed the Jamaican artist Vybz Kartel murder conviction on Thursday, sending the case to a lower court to decide whether to retry the dancehall icon. Vybz Kartel, whose real name is Adidja Palmer, will remain incarcerated for the time being. He, along his co-accused Sean Campbell, Kare Jones, and Andre St. John, were convicted in 2014 for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. During the 2014 jury, a juror had allegedly attempted to bribe others for 500,000 Jamaican dollars for a particular outcome in the case. Despite the allegation, the trial continued, and Vybz Kartel was convicted. According to the Privy Council on Thursday, the council ruled that conviction should be quashed on the grounds of juror misconduct. Now, I do have a video here of the council, and I'm going to let you hear exactly what the court says. I'm going to mute myself for a few moments because I want you to understand what the court is saying. The court is not saying Vybz Kartel is innocent of the murder, nor his co-accused. They're saying that sending the case back to the lower court, which is the Jamaican court, to make a decision if they want to retry. And I'm going to elaborate on that. But no further ado, I want you to hear what actually went on in the Privy Council today, because, like we would say, it's best to hear from the horse's mouth, right? Yeah, it's best to hear from the horse's mouth. So here's the Privy Council hearing.
Judgment in the matter of Sean Campbell, Adidja Palmer, Kare Jones, and Andre St. John against the King.
On the 13th of March 2014, following a 64-day jury trial in the Home Circuit.
Now, when you see it, it's
court in Kingston, Jamaica.
That's the way the video is.
The appellants, Sean Campbell, Adidja Palmer, Kare Jones, and Andre St. John, were convicted of the murder of Clive Lizard Williams, to whom I shall refer as the deceased. At trial, the prosecution case was that the deceased and another man, Lema Chow, had been given 2 unlicensed firearms belonging to Palmer for safekeeping. On the 16th of August 2011, Campbell summoned Chow and the deceased to Palmer's house after they had failed to comply with Palmer's deadline for returning the weapons. The prosecution alleged that they were met on arrival by Palmer, Jones, and St. John, and that Chow and the deceased were both attacked, after which Chow saw the deceased lying motionless on the ground with Jones bending over him. Chow escaped, but the deceased was never seen again. Police attended Palmer's house on the 22nd of August 2011. They noticed the house smelled of disinfectant. On the 25th of August, they cordoned off the perimeter wall, treating the premises as a crime scene. When they returned on the 27th of August, they found that the entire interior of the house had been destroyed by fire. On the 29th of August, police forensics reported a foul odour emanating from the living room. On a further visit on the 30th of September, it was discovered that the rear of the house had been demolished. Police dug at the premises but did not find a body. The police seized the mobile phones of Palmer and St. John. Text messages, voice notes, and a video from those phones were put in evidence at trial. The prosecution also relied on telecommunications data which the police had obtained from Digicel, a communications provider. The prosecution case was that the mobile phone evidence and telecommunications data, taken as a whole with Chow's evidence, proved the fact of the killing, the reason for the killing, the method of disposal of the deceased's body, and the identity of at least one of the killers, namely Palmer. The four appellants each denied murdering the deceased. At trial, the appellants objected to the telecommunications data being admitted as evidence. They argued that the data was inadmissible because it had been obtained in breach of the Interception of Communications Act and the fundamental right to the protection of privacy of communications guaranteed by the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms contained in the Jamaican Constitution. The judge admitted the evidence. He ruled that the data could be relied upon by the prosecution even if it had been obtained in breach of the Charter or the Interception of Communications Act. Over the course of a 64-day trial, there occurred a series of incidents involving the jury. The jury was reduced to 11 members after a juror was discharged almost 8 weeks into the trial. On the final day of the trial, it was brought to the judge's attention that a member of the jury, who will be referred to as Juror X, had attempted to bribe other members of the jury. The judge questioned the jury forewoman, who stated that Juror X had offered bribes to each of the other jurors to acquit the appellants. The judge asked counsel for the prosecution and the defense if the trial could continue. It would not have been possible only to discharge Juror X, because under the Jury Act, a trial for murder cannot continue with fewer than 11 jurors. The judge decided to proceed with his summing up and gave a direction to the jury, reminding them of their function. The jury retired to consider its verdict at 3:42 p.m. The jury returned at 6:08 p.m. and by a majority of 10 to 1 convicted all four appellants of the deceased's murder. A fifth defendant was unanimously acquitted. Juror X was immediately arrested and was later convicted of attempting to pervert the course of justice. There was no evidence to connect his activities with the appellants. The appellants appealed against their conviction to the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, which dismissed their appeals. The Court of Appeal granted permission to appeal to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council on 3 grounds, which were, first, that the trial judge failed properly to inquire into allegations of juror misconduct. Secondly, that the trial judge departed from standard practice in inviting the jury to retire to consider their verdict so late in the day, putting undue pressure on them to reach a verdict. And thirdly, that the trial judge erred in admitting the telecommunications data because it had been obtained in breach of the Interception of Communications Act and the Charter. The Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has unanimously concluded that the appeals should be allowed and the appellant's convictions should be quashed on the ground of juror misconduct, and that the case should be remitted to the Court of Appeal of Jamaica to decide whether to order a retrial of the appellants for the murder of Clive Williams. The board has considerable sympathy with...
And that the people them want to hear you are going to... Yeah, the height of great man reach and kept. The one them say they must send back the case to the lower courts. You are going
to... properly to inquire into allegations of juror misconduct. Secondly, that the trial judge departed from standard practice in inviting the jury to retire to consider their verdict so late in the day, putting undue pressure on them to reach a verdict. And thirdly, that the trial judge erred in admitting the telecommunications data because it had been obtained in breach of the Interception of Communications Act and the Charter.
Yeah, that's his reason why.
The Judicial Committee of the Privy Council.
That's his reason why he's recommended, or the Privy Council has recommended, that the case is sent back to a lower case, because the juror that had tampered or tried to influence the other juror shouldn't have been allowed on the case. But like he said, what would they have done 8 months into the case when they cannot continue the trial with no less than 11? And the admission, or the judge allowing the telecommunication evidence, which is the phone data, the messages, and the geolocation information into the trial, is erroneous because it was accepted or acquired illegally in accordance to the privacy of the Constitution of Jamaican citizens,
which dismissed their appeals. The Court of Appeal granted permission to appeal to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council on 3 grounds, which were, first, that the trial judge failed properly to inquire into allegations of juror misconduct; secondly, that the trial judge departed from standard practice in inviting the jury to retire to consider their verdict so late in the day, putting undue pressure on them to reach a verdict; and thirdly, that the trial judge erred in admitting the telecommunications data because it had been obtained in breach of the Interception of Communications Act and the Charter. The Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has unanimously concluded that the appeals should be allowed and the appellant's convictions should be quashed on the ground of juror misconduct, and that the case should be remitted to the Court of Appeal of Jamaica to decide whether to order a retrial of the appellants for the murder of Clive Williams. The Board has considerable sympathy with the dilemma faced by the trial judge on the final day of a long and complex trial. Following the allegations of bribery, he had either to continue with the 11 remaining jurors or to discharge the jury. Despite this, the Board considers that the approach taken by the judge was a material irregularity in the course of the trial, which makes it necessary to quash the convictions. This is for 3 reasons. First, the direction to the jury on the final day was inadequate to save the situation. The judge simply reminded the jury that they had sworn or affirmed that they would return verdicts in accordance with the evidence they had heard in court. The judge did not refer to the alleged bribery, of which, if the allegations were true, the jurors were already aware. Secondly, the trial continued with the allegedly corrupt juror serving as one of its 11 members. In the Board's view, there should have been no question of allowing Juror X to continue to serve on the jury. Allowing Juror X to remain on the jury is fatal to the safety of the convictions which followed. It was an infringement of the appellant's fundamental right to a fair hearing under the Jamaican Constitution. Thirdly, the judge should have considered whether the remaining jurors might have become, consciously or unconsciously, prejudiced for or against one or more of the appellants as a result of Juror X's behaviour. For example, there was a danger that the attempted bribe could have made the other jurors overcompensate, consciously or unconsciously, if they assumed that the offer must have come from one of the appellants and that therefore they must be guilty. The judge took no account of this risk. The Board is very mindful of the serious consequences which may flow from having to discharge a jury shortly before the end of a long and complex criminal trial. It is also very conscious of the danger of deliberate attempts to derail criminal trials by engineering situations in which it is necessary to discharge the jury. In England and Wales, there is legislation which allows a judge in certain situations to discharge a jury because of jury tampering and to continue the trial by judge alone. There is no such legislation in Jamaica. It follows that there will be occasions where, as in this case, a court will have no alternative but to discharge a jury and end the trial in order to protect the integrity of the system of trial by jury. In view of its conclusion on the issue of juror misconduct, the Board holds that it is not necessary to express a concluded view on the other two grounds of appeal. For these reasons, the appellant's appeals should be allowed. The Court is now adjourned.
Rastafari, what them say? Them have to free at it. And that them say. The universal bar seems to have won this case as the world wait to see if the lower courts now are going to grant a retrial as the Privy Council suggests, because they have quashed this conviction, meaning that it has to be thrown out. Now, people want to leave in the comment if you think that this was a setup, because, like you heard the Privy Council judge says, they are aware in the UK of, jurors and people trying to taint the jury deep into the trial, so the case have to be removed. The juror have to be removed. And in England, the judge have the discretion to remove the juror and do a trial by judge. But in Jamaica, there's no such law. So it seems like, say, Adi and other people might have known, Issa, which is the lawyer, might have known of this technicality and knew that if they muddy up the case, it would, at time the government would really waste. Basically, he said that they threw the case back to the lower courts because they feel that some of the jurors might have overreacted because they might overcompensated, thinking that Adi is really guilty because there was an allegation of bribery of that 500,000 Jamaican dollar for a specific outcome. Also, the fact that he allowed the telecommunication evidence, although it was attained illegally under the Constitution in the privacy of Jamaican citizen, and he knew, he still allowed it. The Privy Council judge says that's another strike, one of the reasons why they're throwing out the murder conviction, because this shows irregularity. They also shows that, the juror that was on the jury that offered the $500,000 bribe is obviously corrupt. And it's astonishing to not only the Privy Council judge, but to me, how the judge allowed it. Well, actually, I kind of understand, because at the time, it appears that there were a disqualified juror already on the case. So it's obvious that Adi and them lawyer, them mucky up the waters, and the Privy Council have no choice but to quash the conviction. Now, the Privy Council also said that, the judge did not sufficiently direct or instruct the juror, as he did not explain, that the attempt of bribery of the juror shouldn't be looked at as a prejudicial factor. Now, the whole dancehall industry, the whole of Jamaica, the whole of dancehall lover worldwide is elated on this news, as Vybz Kartel is a talented dancehall icon. And the news that's breaking right now is that the UK Privy Council has quashed the conviction, meaning they have thrown out the murder conviction against Vybz Kartel, Sean Campbell, Karte Jones, and Andre St. John, his co-accused. At this time, he is still incarcerated, as the decision to either release him of all the charges or to grant him a retrial is pondered upon. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a rejuvenating news towards the dancehall and the Jamaican dancehall lovers. But I always ask the question, where is Clive Lizard? Remember, the UK Privy Council did not throw out the conviction because they did not say Vybz Kartel is not guilty of the murder of Clive Williams, aka Lizard. But because of the technicality, the judgment of the judge due to irregularity of the decisions that were made, the material that were used, because that's like one of the first time they ever used like telecommunication information, Digicel, to, convict someone. And it appears that, the Privy Council has made a right decision, because that's what the higher court is supposed to do. The higher court's supposed to look at the process that was taken, the appeal that was requested, because the appeals wasn't that Vybz Kartel was innocent of the charges. The appeal was that his constitutional right was violated because the Digicel Corporation worked with the government and violate his rights under the Constitution, his privacy rights, and also that the judge used irregular material and also did not direct the juror properly, and also allowed a known tainted, a known corrupt juror to stay on the jury. Now that said judge has retired, of course, so I try to figure out if this was a systematic trapping of Vybz Kartel, where this judge was placed there to remove this young ghetto youth. Like Kartel said, every youth is a star, for turn on him light, or if the judge removed himself because he too knew that the Privy Council would have overturned the case because of the irregularity that's within his action. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rastafari Soldier here of Deep Roots TV. I want to find out from you, straight up, do you think that Vybz Kartel had hand in the murder of Clive Williams? That's one question. And do you think that the Jamaican government is going to be able to find an untainted, an unbiased juror to be able to retry the world boss? Because by the Privy Council, in my opinion, quashing this conviction of Vybz Kartel, real name Adidja Palmer, the Gaza boss, the world boss, the teacher, you are going to Adi, the daddy of many upcoming and rising dancehall artists. I think this, basically the Privy Council have let Vybz Kartel out of this case. Because I don't think that the Jamaican government is going to be able to find an untainted jury pool right now. Because since Vybz Kartel has been incarcerated, his popularity has grown. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rastafari Soldier here of Deep Roots TV, reporting live in the studio. The UK Privy Council has quashed the conviction, meaning they have overturned the conviction of Vybz Kartel and his 3 co-accused, they have turned the case back to the lower courts, which is the Jamaican court, to either release the Gaza boss or to retry. And I man thinks I release them if release Kartel. Them have to free Kartel because them now go find nobody fi convict Kartel. Any judge will do it again, have to go resign. You all gonna subscribe, like, and share to the channel. Build up the Rastaman panel. Leave your comment on this one. Another ghetto youth out the road.
Yeah, man, big up to Deep Roots. Yeah, man, you want to hear the tune? Tune into Deep Roots. Up top. Put it up. Yo, big up Deep Roots TV. You don't know a Lenky, no. See it, you're out of fresh, clean, hustling mode. You don't know. You just come to my store, sell, you know what things say. Get to you, you know what thing go. You know rich and the real thing. And you mean action doing, action and plan. Deep Roots TV, you know what thing go. Yeah, big up. Big up Deep Roots TV for me now.
Yeah, man, it's not a squash. It's a squash. Oh, a squash. Big up Deep Roots TV every time.
Yeah, man, Deep Roots TV, and a big up and a locking and tuning, sin. Rastafari, give thanks.
Tune in to Deep Roots TV. Log in, subscribe, online, YouTube. Get there or be square. Jacob said that.
No, beat down my fist. Big up Rastafari Soldier, you're watching Deep Roots TV.
Boom, bang, bang.
Boom, bam, bang.
Mad.
Mad love, respect, brethren.
I mean, man, I love fun. Fire.